Good evening and thank you for joining us for KREM 2 News at 5 tonight. I'm Mark Hanrahan. President Trump's sweeping tax and spending cut package has passed its final hurdle. The so-called Big Beautiful Bill boosts border security and ICE enforcement, increases defense funding, and extends his 2017 tax cuts. The bill also implements new work requirements and other changes to safety net programs, including SNAP, the Food Assistance Program, and Medicaid.
The hardworking families of America are hungry for this kind of change. Take power away from Washington, give it back to the people, and watch what happens. Great things.
In an act of defiance, House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries held up the vote. He spoke for several hours on the floor this morning in opposition to the legislation. All right, joining us live on the phone right now is Eastern Washington Congressman Michael Baumgartner. Representative Baumgartner, thank you for joining us. As you know, this bill passed with only Republican support along party lines in the House vote today. Why are you and Republicans so bullish on the legislation, and why do you think it's a good thing for Washington?
Well, this was one big, beautiful day for the American people with passing this legislation. It's going to be great not only for our border security, but for our national security, for the American economy. So just a tremendous accomplishment, and I couldn't be more thrilled.
Hey, the Congressional Budget Office, as you know, estimates this bill will add $3.4 trillion to the federal deficit over the next 10 years. Are you concerned about that at all?
Well, you know, our deficit spending is a challenge. I would say I don't agree with those numbers in total. They have a model where the economy is only going to grow at less than 2%. And I think with what we're doing with energy production alone in this bill, where we're going to open up a lot of new oil drilling in Alaska, a lot of new American energy production, you know, I think we'll get growth rates above 3%. So I think it's going to be overall good for the economy and has significant savings as well, too. But it's a great piece of legislation.
Another big sticking point for opponents of the legislation, Congressman, is what the CBO estimates it will do to health care for Americans. They estimate nearly 12 million Americans losing health coverage under Medicaid over the next 10 years. In fact, Cassie Sauer, the president and CEO of the Washington Hospital Association, calls the legislation, quote, a disaster for health care. She says there's no way to absorb the level of cuts in the Medicaid program without massive impacts to all Washingtonians' access to care. And what do you think about that? How do you respond to that statement from her?
Well, there's a lot of alarmism and hyperbole there. I mean, look, Medicaid is a federal matching program to the states. So the states can decide to do whatever they want to with their health care spending. But what the federal government's not going to do anymore is not going to pay for illegal immigrants to be on health care as they are in Washington state. And it's not going to pay for able-bodied workers who could get off the couch and be in the labor force, and they're not going to be paid for as well. You know, what's challenging the hospital in Washington state is a lot of things that have happened in Olympia, like nursing mandates and other high tax rates that they've imposed upon hospitals. So Washington state has a challenge, but the Big Beautiful Bill includes a $50 billion fund to help rural hospitals. I care a ton about rural hospitals. It's one of the reasons why when I was in the state Senate, I helped create the WSU Medical School and a rural healthcare medicine. So we're going to make sure that our rural hospitals and healthcare are taken care of. And so I wouldn't believe all the scare tactics that are out there about healthcare. It's actually going to be a stronger system for Medicaid with what we're doing in the One Big Beautiful Bill.
I think you're referring to the Rural Health Transformation Fund that you just alluded to. Cassie Sauer, again with the Washington Hospital Association, she brings that up in her statement released today as well. She calls it wholly inadequate. She says it adds bureaucracy and administrative hurdles to accessing funds and doesn't come close to making up for payment cuts. So why do you guys think you're so far apart with your opinions of what this bill will do to that?
Well, I know the Hospital Association pretty well because I spent 8 years in the state Senate and used to work with them on a number of issues and help them. I mean, Washington State and the legislature has done a ton of things to make it tougher to run a hospital in terms of things like bed mandates, nursing mandates, and high taxes on hospitals. But the fact of the matter is, it's unfair to the American people to try to subsidize bad policy in Washington State with respect to illegal immigrants being on health care and able-bodied adults being on health care because of what Washington State is doing to hospitals. So we are going to help protect rural hospitals. I'm dedicated to that, in part with this $50 billion fund, and we're going to do other things to help hospitals. But overall, this is a program that makes Medicaid stronger, and just because some hospital executive is making these outrageous claims, I wouldn't worry about it. I'm very confident that we will take care of our rural hospitals.
All right, Congressman Baumgartner, I think you mentioned that you are staying in D.C. because this bill now heads to the president's desk. Do you plan to be there in person when he signs it?
Yeah, I'll be with the president at the White House tomorrow, and but really, this isn't just President Trump's victory or Republican victory. This isn't a victory for the American people. There's so many great things in this bill. They're going to help our economy and make us safer. It's just really one big, beautiful day, one of the most historic pieces of legislation to pass the U.S. Congress, and I'm so pleased and honored to have played a role in it.
Congressman Michael Baumgartner, appreciate your time today. Thank you so much. Well, additional lawmakers are reacting to the big, beautiful bill's passage in the House today. Washington Governor Bob Ferguson denounced the bill, focusing on the transfer of wealth from the lower and middle classes to the upper class. The governor said, quote, "This bill takes food from our most vulnerable Washingtonians to give tax breaks to the ultra wealthy. The bill is only beautiful to billionaires," he said. Washington Senator Patty Murray shared similar sentiments as the governor, writing that this bill, quote, "is the largest transfer of wealth from people who have the least to the people who have the most in our nation's history. This bill," she says, "is un-American and flat out wrong." Meantime, Idaho Senator Mike Crapo applauding the House passage of the bill and pushes back against his Democratic colleagues, writing, quote, "The reality is this legislation not only prevents massive across-the-board tax hikes, but also provides new tax reliefs that overwhelmingly benefit low and middle-class families and workers," unquote. Today, Idaho Governor Brad Little is happy the U.S. Supreme Court will hear a case from the Gem State regarding transgender athletes. The case stems from litigation filed against the state of Idaho by a transgender athlete at Boise State University following Little's signing of the Fairness in Women's Sports Act of 2020. Little said, quote, "Idaho was the first state to step out and ban boys and men from competing with girls and women in organized athletics. I am proud to work with my legislative partners to push common sense policies that protect the American way of life," unquote. The court will hear that case later this year. All right, let's pause from the headlines and talk weather. We have got cooler weather for the next few days. Let's check in now with Chief Meteorologist Jeremy the Goose, sporting some new shades. Oh, he took them off just in time for the forecast. Jeremy?
Mark, they're a bit ridiculous, but it is bright out here, so you have to do something, otherwise it just winds up getting to you. Notice the cloud cover building into the south. That, unfortunately, is a sign of things to come tomorrow. It'll keep us a little bit cooler and add a little moisture to the atmosphere. Relative humidities have dropped back into the teens. We've been watching those closely because that correlates to how long embers stay lit. And when you're talking fireworks or ongoing wildfires in the region, that's something we will always keep a close eye on. Temperatures about 10 degrees colder than where they were this time yesterday. A big shift in the weather pattern, all thanks to that frontal boundary moving through. That frontal boundary is what brought us the wind yesterday, and it looks like wind continues to die down. Next few hours, gusts in the teens means they calm so nicely as we get between them. I think that's a big change and a welcome change at that. We'll eventually see a little more cloud cover tomorrow, but notice all of the moisture either stays in the southern panhandle or over in Montana. A couple of stray showers make it into the mountains, and that is it. Here in Spokane, we're going to call it a mix of clouds and sun. 79 degrees is where we top out. 80 on Saturday, mid-80s by Sunday, and we're getting even warmer next week, so I know it gets cooler, but enjoy it while it lasts.